You've found AHO Radio. We're authentic human outliers coming together to help heal the fear of being authentic, to bring back genuine human conversation. No hype, no sensationalism, just honest talk about the critical issues affecting society, affecting humankind. And now, here are the hosts of AHO Radio, John Krotec and Bill Protzmann. Greetings, everyone. Authentic Human Outliers Radio is here to offer audiences comfort and support for being that genuine, thoughtful, amazing people that you are. We're a safe place to trade ideas without too much judgment and to model what a conversation, real dialogue, can accomplish. I'm Bill Protzmann, moderator and co-host for today's conversation. Our objective today is to expand the idea of how AHO Radio began when John Krotec and I launched early in 2020, authentic discussion of topics that matter most. The conversation is just that, a series of topical discussions. Today's show is one of them. This isn't so much about answering questions, it is about the process of loving the questions themselves, and then, as the poet-philosopher Rilke wrote, we'll eventually, without noticing it, live our way into the answers. Before we unveil today's topic, I want to introduce the team. First of all, my co-host of AHO Radio and the founder of Green Zone Hero and Hashtag Planet, John Krotec. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Hey, Bill, brother, how's it going, man? Glad to be here and super excited about this episode, man. This is going to be really cool. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming your way. Yep.
Rocking and rolling. I love these guys, and I am so grateful that they're here. So bringing their wisdom, expertise, and courage to the conversation, we're honored and humbled to introduce Steve Morrison, the founder of Spiritual Workout. Hey, Steve. And Dave Brisbin, pastor of the Effect Faith Community. Gentlemen, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, John.
Glad you're here. So glad you're here. So here's a setup. Unlike many things these days, the unwritten agenda for our conversation is to be thoughtful, succinct, and honest. And none of us really know the answer we're after here, but it's helpful to know that we can cooperate and disagree, all in service to this process of living our way into the answer. It may take more than one session, and very grateful to you guys for agreeing that in advance we can go off and do other things and create as much of a process to answer this as we want to. So thank you in advance, you guys, for your generosity and authentic participation. It means so much. So now, the question of the week. In an environment that's fueled by addiction to technology and controlled by artificial intelligence, how do we locate and connect with our authentic audience, the amazing people who will give it all up for personal transformation? How do we even begin to tackle that?
Well, it's a huge question, and I know that we've got some answers, maybe not the total answer, but there's some good ideas. And, one thing that you said just a second ago is honesty. And, we talk about authentic conversation, and, sometimes we wonder how much of that's really going on. And in my particular situation is I've just tried to scale it back and become more simple in the things that I do. And in that simplicity, I'm finding that honesty and it's attracting individuals like here on this show that make the world totally something different than what people are used to. And that in and of itself makes me feel even more authentic to know that I can be on a show like this and be with guys like Steven and Dave and you, Bill, and be totally me, which takes me out of the box that society wants me to be in. And I refuse to be boxed, and you guys empower me to be who I really am. And so thank you for that. And I don't know, Dave, I know that Dave's got a different take on it, and I'd like to hear what Dave has to say about it.
Well, the thing is, if we are talking about marketing human transformation, personal transformation, it's not going to be like marketing anything else. There's a different shape to human transformation. Yes, we got to use the technology that is available to us, and all of that, that basic technique is going to be there, but the message is different. And I remember Marshall McLuhan back in the 60s, the medium is the message, right? And so the medium is carrying much of the message with it. And in this case, the medium and the actual message we're trying to convey are sometimes at odds with each other. Human transformation is has a shape to it that's going to be different than the way we acquire everything else that we're trying to acquire in life through marketing. And in fact, in a real way, human transformation isn't really acquired. It's kind of fallen into. And the shape is always that there has to be a descent before the ascent. There has to be an emptying before a filling. There has to be a clearing out before we can see what's really right in front of us. And so how do you sell that? I mean, everything in our culture that is so fast paced always wants to be able to go from point A to point B in a straight line. Everything is ascent. And even in the realm of personal transformation, spiritual transformation, whatever you want to call it, that is specifically what is being described, that we can somehow take this straight line to where we want to go without any kind of dip, without having to move into the disorientation, the disturbance of having to clear out everything. But without that, every responsible human philosophy and religious tradition has that same shape to it and understands that's what has to happen. So if we're already coming out with a message that is going to be intrinsically at odds with the other messages that people are getting through marketing and is not what they want to hear, then we've already got a built-in kind of dissonance, and that's going to be difficult to market through. When we started The Effect 13, 14 years ago, I remember saying that there's 10% of the people out there who still think Elvis is alive. So maybe there's 10% of the people who are going to want a message like this, and we're still trying to figure out that and how it works.
Yeah, I'm with you on the long journey. Stephen, I've heard a lot of law of attraction people say, oh, but once you know the secret, it's all good. There's no need to take the deep dive.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about as I'm listening to you guys so far, because we talk, the question is how, and I stop on the word how, because I really have kind of trained myself to go more to the what, right? Law of attraction's on. So what do I want? I want to, among other things, connect with like-minded, like-spirited people with whom I can laugh and explore and collaborate and co-create. And look, I'm here with you guys, those exact people. My exact intention that I have spent time cultivating on my own, absent the very thing that I'm desiring. And then one day, poof, here it is. And I'm online with you guys, and I'm doing something that's new and different and exciting with the exact kinds of people that I've been intending. And the how was not part of the equation for me, because the how wasn't so much my job. That's kind of what I've come to believe and practice, right? Get clear about what you want, let go of how and when. But you also have to be able to, as I say, listen to inspiration. Maybe I should reach out and put that guy Bill on my list of this thing that I'm doing. I haven't seen and talked to him in forever, and poof, now, how much time later, not longer, here I am. And it happened with that connection with Bill, right, in this particular time. So the hows can sometimes really trip us up. And it's not that we don't do those things. It's not like we're not going to use the tools that are out there. But I think it's, for me in my work, here's a tool, a platform, let's say some social media platform. I'm less interested in how the platform works than I am in how it, if at all, it can work for the kind of message that I want to create. In other words, to Dave's excellent points about selling transformation, can I do that here? If so, great. And if not, fine, there'll be some other way. But that's sort of how when I hear about a how question, I kind of jump to the what.
So how? Let me ask that question a different way. What do we then do with all this, quote, marketing expertise that is so, quote, successful? I know scare quotes these days, but it's possible to join the marketing bandwagon and go after the low-hanging fruit and be financially successful without taking too much of that deep dive. But that model isn't working in personal transformation unless you have some really good tasting Kool-Aid. So what do we do?
You can't. Well, yeah. I'm gonna reference what Dave just said, and I'm gonna use this from personal experience, and then it's gonna lead into what Stephen just said, and then it'll be my answer to that question. And I remember my own personal journey through therapy, dealing with the brain injury and some personal issues with my relationship. My first day sitting down with a counselor was, I can't do anything else about the people around you. I can only deal with you. In other words, I can only help fix you. You're not gonna be able to fix anybody else around you. If you go and deep dive first, then we can start the journey. And then what Stephen said was, which is really cool. So Dave has already shown us it's not easy. You have to have the intention and the desire. And then on the tail end of that, and this is to your point, Bill, your question is, what do? We do the work. And when you start to face yourself in that search for truth and authenticity and personal integrity and honesty with the right desire and intent, the work just comes in. And when you start to do the work, of course, this is only on personal experience, is the people start to come and they go, what is it that Stephen's doing? What is it that the pastor's doing? What is it that Bill's doing that I'm interested in? And how are these guys making it happen? And in that search for self-actualization, by doing it ourselves, and the wealth of knowledge between us four is phenomenal. One person can change the world. Can you imagine 4 people out there on similar wavelengths, attracting people that are searching with intention? Just phenomenal stuff. So the answer would be, you have to do the work, and it is tough, right, Dave?
Absolutely. There's that old saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And often people will thank me for helping them do such and so, whether if it's in recovery, helping them to be able to recover from drugs. And what I tell them is, in a very real, thank you, first of all, for the compliment and for the gratitude. But second of all, there's this sense where I was just privileged to be there when the miracle happened. I just happened to be there when the student was ready, and I came along at the right time, and there was a connection. But if it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so in a real way, what's marketing about? Marketing is about tapping into a demand that is already present, a need that is already present, or creating a demand or a need. And in personal transformation and human transformation, I suppose it's similar. If there's a demand there, you can call it that. But it is this real sense that the person has to be ready to do that work that you're talking about. And so the question becomes, if you are authentically doing the work yourself, if you've already gone down that road and you have something to offer those who are also ready to go down that road, how do we distinguish ourselves from everybody else who on the surface at least seems to be saying the same thing? We're all going to get to the same place. We're all trying to, but there's a difference. And what I'm looking for is the person that I am hearing from, either in media or in person, are they including the fact that there has to be that dive? There has to be that clearing away. There has to be that hard work. Remember Peter Gabriel's song, Digging in the Dirt, searching out the places where we got hurt. Are you including that in the message? Is that part of it? Because otherwise, then you're just selling something, and you're not really going to be able to show a person where they need to go. So the question for us for years has been, as a faith community, how do we distinguish ourselves from every other faith community out there who is saying that, the what that Stephen is talking about, the where that we want to get is the same, but the journey is so different. And without the journey, without the shape of that authentic journey, we're not really going to get where we want to go. And so that's been a central question for us. How do we make this distinction? And how do we connect with those who really are ready to hear a message like this?
And the answer I heard to that is we wait. You bring the intention, Stephen, I heard you say, bring intention. But then you just have your example, John. You were saying that your example is just that, it's one shining light among thousands of shining lights that is there for any number of people to locate and connect with. The flavor of
common ground, because your love of music, and Dave's brilliant capture of Jesus and the word and the spiritual workout. You know, we've all found these different methodologies, and somehow they're tied into a common ground. You know, you can see people argue about the plays of a particular football game, just as an example. And when they get into these arguments and they step outside of themselves, they argue and they argue and they argue, but they've missed the fact that they both love the sport. And I think what I'm hearing everybody saying here is that there's some kind of an element of an attraction of a common ground. But maybe it's just the human experience that attracts folks to us. You know, my platform is a little bit different with childhood sexual assault, which is a subject that not many men particularly don't want to talk about.
But John, dude,
And
you're closer to the deep dive, you know.
it's
You're kind of leading with that.
I'm surrounded by grapes and hummingbirds now, but you know, I mean, it wasn't easy to get here, and that's why I love to be inspired by people like you guys to let me know that I'm on the right wavelength, and in being in the right wavelength, there's people, it comes to me in different ways, but they do show up. It's amazing how many private messages I get, and not weird or anything like that, but how many people say, tell me how you did it. Tell me what you're doing. And I always say WORK and look at that person in the mirror. And I can't tell you how many times at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was up trying to fall in love with that guy in the mirror. And it's a journey. So I think that the wavelength, the vibration, the intention, the desire has a way of coming back around. And
let's deal with this whole idea of popularity, because guys, we're pretty unique. We're outliers. Even within our particular lanes, we're outliers. You know, there aren't music therapists teaching what I teach. There aren't, the popular Christian ministry is not teaching what Dave teaches.
No.
And Stephen, you're doing something that actually turns it around and says, okay, client on my sofa, this is a workout for you, dude. So come to the table prepared to do that work. How in this crazy age of whatever's easiest is most popular, do we show up and offer our message in a way that gets to the core a little bit deeper than saying, oh yeah, it's simple, you know, law of attraction, the secret, whatever. And that applies to everything that we do, right? In the rest of the world. What we're asking our people to come to the table with is willingness to do the hard work. That's like the common denominator here, to take the deep dive. Dave, you mentioned the shape of the journey, to be willing to descend before the ascent can begin, which is not a popular concept. So what's the best way of offering that message to the world, to people who really want it and are dissatisfied with the simple answers?
Well, I'm having an idea here as we're talking, and the word succinct from your introduction, Bill, is resonating. I'm not sure I'm going to succeed with succinct, but as a marketer, I'm just putting my marketing hat on because that's my first career in this lifetime. And so I'm not anti-marketing by any stretch of the imagination, but we're saying a few things here this morning. One of the things that we're saying is that the promise to any of the people that would come to any of our programs is the same. We're writing the same paragraph to everybody out in the world who's going to be interested, right? Come do our program and you'll come out the other side feeling better about yourself. Your life will be better. You'll feel, you know, degrees of improvement, right? So, and we're also saying that people have to be, to Dave's point, people have to be at a certain point already. And I say that too, I'm not nearly as succinctly and well as Dave did, but it's like, you know, one of the things that came up in our class last week was somebody said, you know, I'm just sick and tired of my own shit. And everybody was like, yes, that's exactly why we're here. We're all sick and tired of our own shit, right? So somebody now, is that what goes out in the marketing? Hey, if you're sick and tired of your own shit, come our way, right? And so, but to some degree, that's sort of it. Like they have to already be in a moment and a place where they've been dealing with their stuff enough. They've reached a point, they're calling the therapist. That's some version of what we're all offering, right? So what I think that this is leading us to is the necessity of each of us and any of us on the planet doing this type of work to be able to describe to somebody who's sick and tired of their stuff and ready to do something, to be able to describe just what they'll get when they come to us. And so what I'm starting to see in this conversation, instead of me endeavoring to do that solely by myself, and Bill and John and Dave, you guys doing it solely by yourself, I'm starting to see some interconnectedness, which I love because that's very 5D, right? The whole concept of interconnectivity and not competition. We're niche mates. We're co-petitors. What's that word? Co-petitors, like competitors, but cooperative. Sorry.
I like that word.
And that there's something to that idea that maybe the future of marketing personal transformation is marketing the basic idea with ultimate different paths that people can choose from, right? I'd much rather be on a menu with you guys and a bunch of other people than trying to figure out for myself how to get the few people that are going to like what I do. If being on that menu means I see somebody come in, look my direction, and then choose Dave, fantastic. That person, yeah. I want more than anything for that person to find the transformation in the work that's going to help them. If Dave resonates with them, beautiful. The next one will resonate with me. That's the part of moving us as marketers into a 5D way of marketing, a new consciousness way of marketing that starts to get me excited compared to not being with you guys, sitting with me and maybe some assistant type person trying to figure out, well, how many times should we post this week on Instagram and what should we say? And you know,
which click funnel is most, yeah, I hear you. So for those who don't know, explain 5D just for a second. Take a slight digression here.
So 5D is just one of those terms I use. I mean, for me, everything about my life, my work, my existence on this planet is in the context of humanity's consciousness shifting. Personally, I've bought off on that idea. I think that's what's happening. I see it everywhere. And so if it's shifting, then it's the way we've been is dying out. The way we've been, old consciousness, 3D consciousness, kind of on the ground on planet Earth, 5 senses, hallmarks of that, a few of them, you know, very judgmental, right, wrong, good, bad, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I see that consciousness dying out. It's sort of clinging for dear life, but it's dying out and the new one's being born. And so some of the hallmarks of the new consciousness or 5D consciousness or the age of compassion are compassion and interconnectedness and truth and authenticity and integrity and all of those things. They're not new to us. They existed in 3D, but they were like fits and starts. Oh, we know what it's like to have a moment of compassion or love in the midst of all this stuff. The 5D new consciousness, as I understand it, is that we're going to live by all of those things, absent all the other stuff. So anything that starts to be created and developed from that place is interesting and exciting to me. And that's just where I want to be. And that's where I want to live.
I got you. Dave, I know you'd say that sounds like contemplative. Well, I don't want to box it in too far. Similarities. Give us a bounce back from the Christian perspective on 5D.
Contemplative spirituality is a spirituality that it basically defines Judeo-Christian ethics and a Judeo-Christian approach to spirituality. The Old Testament, the New Testament are full of mystics and contemplatives. We just don't see them that way anymore, especially in the last 500 years since the Reformation, when we got also rational and scientific and logical, and we kind of left those sensibilities behind. But contemplative spirituality is a spirituality of subtraction rather than addition. And it's a spirituality of clearing out space in order to be present. And so it's a different approach. It's a non-theological, non-doctrinal, non-intellectual approach. Not that those things are obliterated, but a balance comes between our intellect and our experience. And so contemplative spirituality kind of is the approach to doing exactly what we've been talking about doing in terms of the shape of the journey, where we have to clear out and empty before we go. And we can do that one of two ways. Steve was just talking about people being tired of their stuff. And the truth of the matter is, there was an article that I read where this man toward the end of his life is saying, I would like to say that I was a contemplative by intention, but the truth of the matter is I've been a contemplative by catastrophe. In other words, life will do the clearing out for us. If we don't do it by intention, if we don't intentionally take the dive, life will continually strip away and take things away from us. If not just by old age, the things that we have imagined ourselves to be, our identity, as in the roles we play and the accomplishments we achieve and the attributes we display, will be slowly stripped away. That's why we fear death, because at the moment of death, everything that it means to be us and be a human is taken away, and what's left. And so contemplative by intention would be, are we ready to start stepping away from the things that we think is our identity, that really masks our ability to be completely present to this moment, and again, be able to balance these things. And so, yes, our intellect and our egoic mind is the tool. It's the interface between us and the world, and it's absolutely essential to our survival. But if we think it's the be all and end all in who we are, then we can never achieve this human transformation we're talking about. So in terms of reaching people who are on the precipice, another way of putting it, people who are ready to transition from the first half of life, which is focused on getting what we need from the external world, and the second half of life, which is realizing that the answers aren't out there, the truth isn't out there, but within, and we need to take an interior dive. How do we reach those people? I suppose part of it is identifying with them when they're tired of their stuff. In other words, they're tired of continuing to bang their head against the wall to get the things that are ultimately meaningful and purposeful in life through ways that increasingly are not working. Or, as John was pointing out, there's times in life when traumas hit, catastrophes do hit, and they do a lot of the work of stripping away that stuff that has been a distraction for most of our lives. In fact, COVID right now is a collective stripping away of so much of the things that we identified ourselves with and we're using as distractions. And when people are calling me and wanting to talk through what COVID has done to them or their families or their marital relationships, I try to point out at some point gently in the conversation is that COVID has already done a service for you by taking you down the pathways and stripping away things. You can use it as a platform to continue that work, or it can continue to be kind of a cosmic insult, but it's up to you to see it as what it is in your life and how you're going to use it to move on.
So the difference then between someone who's ready and someone who's not is the someone who's not is just looking for a Band-Aid to be able to hold it all together, sticky tape and baling wire until things get better. The person who's searching, our sort of avatar, if we could have one, is red, raw, and bleeding. I mean, they are either like at step one in recovery, or they've been hit by life in a way that either has physical symptoms or mental, emotional ones, and they're curious and want to know what to do, or maybe just desperate and want to know what to do.
I'm going to go back to something that Dave and Stephen both said. One of the things as people that want to help, we have to be really careful and be cautious not to pass judgment on people who, come into our area of influence. And a word that sticks out in my mind that Stephen just said is the word resonate, not resignation, but resonate. And what Dave has pointed out is that life is a series of moments, past moments and moments of the future. The future hasn't happened. The past moments have happened. And sometimes it does take a trauma to yank a knot in somebody's tail. And so I think that the important thing for us with the different programs, the spiritual workout, the effect, the things that you're doing with music is to resonate in a way that pulls out the desire of the person that we would like to help. You know, what are, I would like to think, now I could be very naive, but I would like to think that most people are looking for some type of self-improvement in their life. There's something that they want to do to get better. Now, if they're masking it with drugs and alcohol, sex, or whatever, you know, maybe you can't reach that person initially. But I think that if we, you know, on this road to self-actualization, the programs that we have to help people, if we ourselves, and we've mentioned this at the outset, if we ourselves are doing it in an authentic way, just the way the universe works is going to bring those people to us. You know, have you ever been to a party where, or a get together where somebody comes up and they say a few words and they walk away and it feels like they just sucker punched you, you know, that they resonated in a way that wasn't good? Or somebody comes up, I would venture to say that you three guys could walk up to me at a party and you would resonate with me and I would want to learn more. I would want to learn more. So if we're raising our own tempo, our own vibration, we are going to resonate with people that are seeking help. I have to believe that, because that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me on the road to self-improvement. And we can never be, I don't think we're ever finished. Are we, you guys? Are we ever finished?
No,
with
who we journey are? Over and over.
I mean, I want to do a spiritual workout and I want to learn more about the effect, and I want to learn musical techniques from you. And the reason why I want to is because I see it resonating in you guys. And I guess that's the point. When you're resonating who you really are, and you're on this road to truly help people, at the moment that I meet you guys, you resonate in a way that makes me hungry. So that would be, how do we make people hungry? And I think we do it by being who we really are and really wanting to help people. Isn't that how the universe works?
Yeah, what I would, I think it's a little, I agree with that, John. I think it's just a little different than how do we make people hungry. It's more like we know they are hungry at any given moment, every minute, any hour, right. Different ones are ready. So again, I still keep looking at this more and more as, what is our job as marketers? How do we, I mean, we have to, so the teacher appears, right? And so part of our work in this day and age, as more and more of us are doing more and more different kinds of outlier type of ways to accomplish personal transformation, as we're talking about it, that it's like people have to know that when that day comes, there's a place they can go, a button they can push to meet all of us, to see all of us, to start looking down the menu and see what resonates with them. So as we're talking more about how we market it, I still just keep coming back to more and more of this larger idea of marketing personal transformation. Hey, you out there in the world, when you reach this moment in your life, however we describe that, here's a gigantic menu we have, and we hope you'll avail yourself of it.
So what makes our menu any more powerful than the menu that has like Tony Robbins and Richard Rohr and just like all of those, quote, popular?
I don't know that it's any different. I mean, you know, we could create a menu that's inclusive of anyone and everyone in that world, from Tony Robbins down to us, you know, somebody with a big giant already audience to people that don't have that. Or we create different menus. Here's a menu of people that don't have gigantic audiences that you may never have heard of before. Here's a menu of 100 people that you've probably heard of and wondered about. And maybe there's, you know what I mean? I'm starting to think of it more like that, because again, the general pitch, the key selling point is the same for the hundreds and thousands of practitioners.
But let me play devil's advocate.
I love that. But real quickly though, think based on what he just said, what Stephen just said, and based on what Dave said, you know what? Life is a bowl of spaghetti. It's not a box of dry noodles. So Dave's telling us it's not a straight line. It's that spaghetti. And then the menu, I think, comes from being authentic and resonating in a way that's reality.
Right. So the only way to do a service to the person opening the menu is for every menu item to be presented in the most authentic way. And that's everything you're saying, John, which is we just got to be who we are doing our thing. And that'll resonate with somebody or it won't. But the good news is if it doesn't if my thing doesn't resonate with them, yours will, or the next guy's will, or the next one. That's sort of, I don't know. Now I can't get off this idea.
I dig that. I love that. So it's good.
So I'm a guy out there looking through this giant menu.
Mhm.
And I know there's things, because I've tried them before, that are like, oh, that's nice. You know,
Mhm.
it was a good experience, whatever. And then I know there are things on there where there's popular acclaim. So I watched that movie. First time I've ever seen anything that Tony Robbins did was a couple of years ago when I watched I Am Not Your Guru. And it was a powerful movie because it opens with Tony Robbins intervening on a suicidal guest in the audience, and he does it successfully. And who knows? Maybe the guy is. I hope the guy's still alive. But anyway, you see that. So you see the power of what's possible there. And I'm thinking of myself now on that menu. Somebody's going down that menu, and they're looking down and looking down and looking down, and they're finding Bill Protzmann. And next to me, it says, "Are you ready for the deep dive that will completely take you apart?" You know, that's not easy. Now, some people are going to resonate for that. That's fine. But in this big universe of everybody who's offering all this stuff with all of their power and media and everything, Stephen, are you just suggesting that we show up as authentic like that without any attempt to differentiate, just to be who we are?
I
And
think
then
the
sort of,
differentiation is built in,
Yeah.
right?
okay,
There's no way that I could possibly present the work I do in a way that's going to look like the work you do. But I want to be sure that whoever's looking that day at your offering and my offering is getting as authentic a sense of who and what we are as we can. Because I could say those same exact words to the people that might want a
right?
spiritual workout. Like, it's called a workout, people. You're going to have to do something here, right? And you're saying the same thing, Bill. That's what I mean. It's like, so everybody's hungry. They're already decided they're going to eat something. Now sit down. What do I want to eat today? So I think there's another piece in this. If we turn it all onto ourselves as practitioners in the world, and we have a desire to connect with our audiences, the right and perfect people for what we're offering in a way that really lights us up and benefits them, right? That win-win. We have to also believe that it's possible. We have to believe that our willingness to do everything that we're saying, put ourselves out there in our most authentic way, is part of the process that will bring those people in. And we have to really believe in its possibility. Or I would even say we have to know that it's possible, that in fact, that's really how it works, as John's been saying.
So
I also
for,
think that we need to constantly be checking our motives and the reason that we're doing what we're doing and the reason that we're marketing. I mean, if the main goal is to create a large following, then I think we've already kind of left our authenticity at the door. If we're really here to try to help people to engage their own journey, that's a very different motive. I think as soon as you become someone's guru, there's already a danger there. And I think, you know, the responsible ones realize this. Jesus was always pointing beyond himself to what he called the Father, and never was letting things stop at himself. And in fact, he said before he goes to the cross, he says, "Hey, it's to your advantage that I go. You're freaking out that I'm not going to be here anymore, but it's to your advantage, because you can't just be drafting after me. You can't just be holding on to the hem of my cloak. You're going to have to take this journey yourself and do exactly what I've done." And it isn't until, you know, in the church liturgy, it's Pentecost, it's a certain amount of time afterwards that they finally come into their own. Moses didn't get to go into the promised land because the people were identifying directly with him and not with the God beyond him. And so it's the same thing. We are pointers. We are showers of the way. But as soon as everything is vested in us or people are looking to us, then we've lost our effectiveness to take them where, to show them how they need to take their own journey and do this thing themselves. You know, I've resigned myself to the notion that my message is always going to only resonate with a small subset of the population, which is fine with me, because the most effective communication is one-on-one. It's funny, sometimes people call and they want to counsel it, they want to talk, and they preface it by apologetically saying, I know how busy you are, you know, and I'm sorry that, and it's like, wait a minute, do you understand that everything that I do is so that I can have this conversation with you one-on-one? This is the most important thing that I do. And communication drops off in effectiveness the more people we add. So in an ironic way, the least effective communication that I do in the week is what I do on Sunday morning in what we typically call a sermon, which is one-way communication to a group. That's the least effective thing that I do. And yet it's usually looked at as the pillar of what the church week looks like. In marketing, I mean, how much less effective is that going to be when it's by remote control or through some pre-recorded this or that, or, you know, and we're going out to people that we never see or understand. And yet there is an awareness building that needs to take place. What Stephen was talking about, we need to at least give them the menu. In recovery, there's the idea that, you know, take what you need and leave the rest. I remember when I was going through pastoral training, and there was this long list of books that I had to read, and the pastor saying, it's not important that you know everything that's in each one of these books. It's important that you know where it is on the shelf so that you can get back to it. And so I think that's exactly what Stephen is saying. And I love that. Here is your shelf. Here is all the things. There's all the resources that are available for you, but they're not going to make any bit of difference until you're ready for that particular resource. Do you know where it is on the shelf? Maybe that's something that we can do in our marketing.
I like this
love,
idea.
yeah.
Yeah, I really do. A marketer challenged me to say, you know, what are you really selling, Bill? And I built and shared a thing I call the ultimate landing page, because it wasn't clear to the marketer from everything that I was putting out there, what it is that I'm doing. And it was very helpful for me to put my own menu together and say, well, you know, this stuff, some of this belongs here, and some of it I can pretty much ditch because it's not part of the core of what I do. Like clarity was good for me. So kudos to all the marketers who have helped me personally in the last X number of years, and it's in double digits now, because that's a good exercise. I wish that those marketers would turn around and teach my potential customers how to go about choosing, right? Because the expertise that I'm trying to deploy in service to what I do is really something that I should be teaching people in terms of skillfully. How do I choose? A spiritual workout has these things that resonate for me. The effect has these things that resonate for me. John's teaching this thing because, you know, as a kid or whatever, I was sexually abused. That there's some of that I need too, you know, and so I can skillfully pick and choose what I want based upon what I can see, what resonates with me out there, right? And yeah, Dave, you know, it's a small audience. We're called outliers for a purpose, right? We're way outside the mainstream. We're not under that bell curve. We're out at the tiny tail ends of it. And it's good out there. I like it out there because I meet people who are solid people and are committed to the journey and you know, want to stay engaged. They're not tipping a toe in the water just to see what the temperature is and then moving along to the next thing. And that's important, to be on the edges, to be at the margin. And Dave, you know, how do we get real comfortable with that? I mean, I'm not going to use the metaphor that you use a lot, but it feels like isolating myself more and more is counterintuitive, because out there on the distant margins, there are fewer and fewer people that I might connect with. And what I'm learning is that, you know, they're not going to be the traditional bell curve marketing targets. There are going to be people who are organic, who are actually out there looking like all the candles and trying to pick the one, you know, that they want to light. That's a tough place to be in this world, because the world says bigger, better, faster. How do we get comfortable, guys, out there? Because I find it highly anxiety producing to be sitting there and as a candle in the rack waiting for somebody to come along with a match.
You know, I'm becoming more and more convinced that God never intended there to be a professional clergy. You know, there is just way too much inherent conflict of interest when my source of income and my living is made off the spiritual, you know, ministry work that I do. It would be much more comfortable if what I was doing was devoid of all of that, so that I could be content with one person that I talk to or whatever I do. But, you know, if we have to derive an income from it, then okay, how do we do that authentically? How do we keep our motives and our values intact as we're still trying to do something that's going to produce an income stream? And of course, that's a whole different question, but it's one that we need to at least answer for ourselves, and how we do this and continue to self-promote in a way that is not creating the problem of being that guru, quote unquote, that person that people are looking to, instead of looking within and doing what it is they need to do. And so, yeah, this is a question that I'm always asking. Being a contemplative is sort of antithetical to the marketing process itself, a spirituality that is identified or defined by stillness and solitude and silence, and humility and self-effacing qualities. I mean, how in the world do you then turn that into an entrepreneurial self-promoting machine? I mean, it's so difficult. And at the effect, the people that we attract are people like that. And so there isn't an entrepreneur in the building. I mean, it's so difficult for us to find those people who are good at this kind of thing and enjoy it. And so finding that balance of just creating awareness, you know, getting the menu out there, the resources that are available, but in this particular, you know, niche or area is really difficult because it seems to be at odds with each other.
Yeah, it's a definite natural paradox. And one thing that I like that you point out, Dave, is, you know, what, like with Task Force Zen, one of the hashtags that we had was healing without labels. And when we even say outliers, and it's a label of sorts, and we need to constantly be checking the labels at the door, because if you fall into the realm that Dave's talking about, then it becomes something much different. The motives, the intention gets into the ego world, which is something that true, authentic self-help mentors maybe should not be. You know, we should not be operating in the ego state, which I think becomes a state of labels. And so it's also a constant journey of our own, and we've mentioned this already, of our own self-introspection. So we are checking ourselves at the door. I can't even imagine, you know, what Dave just pointed out, because, you know, I was raised in the Roman Catholic world, and looking back on it all those years, those professional clergy, and what Dave just pointed out is a whole new concept to me. Wow, maybe these guys aren't supposed to be professional clergymen. Maybe they're supposed to be something different. But yet I was in that world for a while. And I think that when we, again, to get back to the labels, how do we heal ourselves without a label? And how do we help to heal others while not being judgmental or labeling them? You know, this is a paradoxical business that we're in, you know, human development and psyche development, that it is something that it's like being in a garden. You know, you're constantly planting seeds and you're constantly pulling weeds, and you know, the garden tender that really watches his crop is the person that's going to have an amazing finish to it and gets ready for the next one. So maybe in a sense, we're cultivators of the human spirit, you know, the spiritual workout, the effect. What is the effect that we have? And those are the kinds of things that take a lot of work. I'm going to go back to the proverbial word work. And a lot of people they want the straight line. They don't want the spaghetti. But Dave, being realistic and honest, he's saying, listen, this is a bowl of spaghetti. Life is not just a dry box. Sooner or later, you have to put those noodles in the water if you're going to have that life that you want. You can't just be a box of spaghetti sitting on the shelf. So it does take that honesty that we've all touched upon to be able to market ourselves in a way that will resonate. I don't know. It's kind of deep, isn't it? but it's fun. and it's definitely a journey. And to me, if I can just affect one person's life the rest of my life, and that person becomes the best husband or the best dad or the best whatever, then I've certainly been blessed. And that in and of itself spurns me on to get better myself. So hopefully I can resonate with somebody in a positive way. And just what I've learned today from you three guys, what I've learned today, I can carry with me throughout the rest of my day. And I have now learned that I'd rather be a bowl of spaghetti and realize that that's how the meal is cooked instead of sitting on the shelf collecting dust. I don't know. It's I don't know. You guys inspire me, but that's cool to me. And that's what I want to be in. I want to be in that world where I am affecting people in a positive way. But Dave, in an authentic way, that's not that my motivation is not to become the guru. My motivation is to become the gardener of human spirituality. And you guys are giving me the bones for a new program.
It's interesting. You're in good company. Jesus said that unless a seed goes into the ground and dies, it can't fulfill its purpose. And your spaghetti is the exact and now analog of that. And of course, Jesus always used the imagery of the gardener over the warrior. Warrior imagery was not in Jesus' vocabulary, but the gardener image was in exactly the way you're using it. So you're tapping into something that is age old here.
Dave,
awesome. But and you guys brought that out of me. So yeah, you guys brought that out. I'm telling you, you guys did.
So final words of wisdom, because we're up against the clock and we're going to continue this conversation. But to put a bow on it today, Stephen, what have you heard that really locks in something for you?
What I've heard that's not particularly new, but it was really wonderful to hear it live and in person with all you guys, is that theme that we're talking about, that we're all essentially dealing with the same thing. And I'm right with you, Dave and Bill, and talking about, I used to ask years and years ago, I used to think if I walked into a room with 100 people, that 100 people wanted what I had to offer. I really did. I truly believe that. And no, it's like, so I asked, please tell me, help me, and the answer kept coming, 3 or 4, maybe, So the one thing that I've come to believe about that, yes, we're talking about in the overall population, a thin band that is ripe and ready for us. And yet I also firmly believe that band is growing by the day. So that's one thing. And the other thing about numbers is I don't care about the number of people that ultimately come in or through a spiritual workout. What I do care about is that anyone who would want to knows that it exists. And I think that is really kind of where we all are in one way or another. And I really appreciate, as John just said, the things that you guys have brought this morning. And the last thing, and I just want to sort of address it without really fully addressing it, Bill, is that feeling of isolation that you're having. Maybe we can pick up on that and make that a topic for another time, because that is a meatball that I would prefer not hang out there. I would like to address that, not just for you, but for any of us, if in fact we find ourselves in that space, because I think it is a natural, organic byproduct of the people we are and the work that we're doing in the world. My personal view of it is I'm not so much, it's sort of alone and isolating, but that's because, and it's so crazy to even conceive of this because I never saw myself as this person, but we're way showers, we're trailblazers. We are pretty much on the bleeding edge of some of these things in so many ways. In so many ways, not at all. And in other ways, I think as we birth this new consciousness, how many of us think this is a super exciting, interesting subject? How many of us, as we've been saying all morning, are ready to dive deep and let go and do all this, right? So there are a few of us. So that feeling of isolation is perfectly, I think, legitimate, but I don't think it's going to be of use or value for any of us to think that we're really truly alone out there. And this conversation, and I'll thank you and end with that, is evidence to me that we really are not alone. So thanks to all of
We'll
you.
begin with that, Stephen. Thank you, because I've been looking for the thread that's going to carry us into our next conversation. And I think that's the one. I really do. We're just not a meatball on the spaghetti. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Dave, what's come sort of more forward focused for you this morning?
Well, I think, just and to kind of leapfrog off of a lot what Stephen was saying, if we're going to be authentic marketers of human transformation and the programs that we're trying to provide, then obviously we have to be authentic doers first. It has to be intrinsically who we are, and it has to be something that we're carrying forward in our personal lives when nobody is looking. And then we have a chance of maybe being able to convey that to a larger audience. I love Stephen's categorization of, it's not about the numbers, even though we're going to be judged by the numbers, and our, street cred comes from numbers. But I love the way you put it, is that people know it's here when they need it. And no information is going to be relevant until it's needed. And so we keep putting it out there. And then when the student is ready, then they know that they can come to us. But I think the other important thing for us is that, it's like anything else, like the Big Bang, it starts at infinite heat and velocity, and then as it expands, it cools. And it's the same thing is with our ministry. When it's just us, it can be quite hot in our spirit as we're moving forward. But as it gets out there, it's going to cool, and it's going to start to look like everything else that's out there. And it's going to be important for us to keep the distinction somehow, to understand that the message will be understood by the mass of people through their own filter, which is their worldview that is culturally ordained and everything else. And so how do we keep a message that is cutting through that is creating a distinction? There was this old line about a sermon had to bring comfort to the uncomfortable and bring discomfort to those who were comfortable. In other words, it had to be rocking enough and out of the ordinary enough that it took you away from where you already were. It allowed you to see through your own filter. And so we need to find a way to convey the message that does that somehow, that continues to show that there's something different here about this approach. Even though everybody says we're trying to go to the same place, there's something different about this approach that can actually take you there. And I don't know what the formula is. I mean, we've been trying to come up with a way of conveying that difference for, 15, 20 years now. But it is something that I keep coming back to. How do I keep the iron hot? Both for myself personally and then in the communication. And I think, that has to then be married on to the technology du jour. How is it that we get things out? Is it social media? Is it books? Is it whatever? I mean, we're going to use the tools that are presented to us, but the message is going to be the core thing.
The message is the core thing. Yes. Yes.
I'm going to go back. Yeah. I'm going to go back to what Stephen said about the aloneness and what people feel, because in that aloneness, there's a certain amount of pain. And in that isolation, there's a certain amount of pain. And what I'd like to let the listeners know today is that exactly what Stephen said and what Dave just said, you're never alone. And there's an important feature to that aloneness, is that there are people out there that truly want to help you. And I can tell you straight up, I was one of those guys that made that telephone call to that hotline looking for help. I didn't want to be here. I didn't think anybody had ever been through what I had been through. My pain was deep. And I'm so grateful that there was a woman on that line that kept me and literally talked me off the ledge for 45 minutes when I wanted to leave this planet. So I can tell you straight up, for those of you who are listening, there are guys like Pastor Dave Brisbin and musicians like Bill Protzmann and spiritual workout artists like Steve Morrison, who want to help you. They're out there, they're here on the show. And if they resonated or my story, then reach out to them, because I can assure you, we are as real as we can get, and we want to help. You are not alone. Your story will resonate with one of us, I can assure you. And I just love the fact that I can be here with like-minded individuals on planet Earth to let other people know that we're here to help and you're not alone. So, big topic, lots of paradoxes, but it's real. And I can't think of a better place to be than right here, right now, with my 3 co-hosts on AHO Radio. And that's not a selling point. That's real. And that's why we're doing what we do. And that's why the universe has connected us. And we are here to plant seeds and to help anybody, anywhere, with anything, with any menu item you can think of. And I'm in love with the whole process.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be a part of this journey with you guys. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Clearly, we've got more to go. We're going to pick this thing up. We're going to talk about the lone meatball.
Sorry about that. Dave did that.
No, that's a great one. So we'll just go with. So Dave, Steve, thank you for your candor and insight. I'm looking forward to our next walk toward the answers here. Also want to thank our sponsors. If anybody's still listening, Green Zone Hero, Music Care, we couldn't do it without you guys. John, thank you. My amazing co-host. Love you, brother.
Love you too. Love all you guys.
Most importantly, thank you to our audience. Thank you for being a part of this, for being a part of the crazy, for listening in, for thinking carefully about stuff. We love you. We can't do this without you. You're the most important part of AHO Radio. And, listen again, subscribe, ring the bell. And until next time, I'm your host, Bill Protzmann. AHO.
AHO.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of AHO Radio. Information we mentioned is probably in the show notes, but if we missed anything, please let us know and we'll get it added for you. Subscribe to the AHO Radio channel on YouTube to stay connected. And as always, we wish you health, success, and significance. AHO!